presenting on behalf of Omdena. I'm a founding member of Omdena, and I will give you a quick introduction into what Omdena is doing, and then I will hand it over to Ghyzlene, who will present the case study. And yeah, feel free to ask questions, and let's make it an interactive session. And yeah, let's get the most out of it. So I will share my screen. All right, so you should be able to see my screen now. And yeah, I want to get started with what Omdena is about and what we have been doing in the last 2 years. And one of the premises that we have is that we believe that all organizations in the future will be data science organizations. Some to a stronger degree and some to a lesser degree, but all organizations need to be able to leverage data science. And one of our mission points is to help organizations and solve problems where AI and data science is most needed. And the way we do it through collaboration. So there are many competitive platforms out there, and they bring in value, and to a certain degree, competition is something that is healthy. But we believe in order to address complicated real-world problems, we need collaboration. And that's the core of Omdena. So as you see on this slide, Omdena is about collaboration of diverse individuals from around the world who are working together to build real-world solutions. And because this workshop will be about the topic of preventing violence, in a recent project with Save the Children, we worked to build solutions to prevent violence or online violence against children. And we were running an AI challenge with 50 data scientists from around the world for 2 months. And we did some very interesting work, as you can see from the feedback of our partner, from John Saltner. And that's to give you an idea of how Omdena has been starting and how these AI challenges are going. I want to show you this slide, which is basically comparing what in often traditional teams and project management settings is happening, which is there's a certain hierarchy happening, while in Omdena projects, there's a network of teams. So we call that bottom-up driven collaboration, where individuals from around the world come together with different skill sets and with different experience levels to address problems and to work together. And we have been doing this with more than 1,800 AI engineers from 99 countries, and we have completed more than 60 projects. And those individuals really come from all types of backgrounds. So that means that diversity is not just in terms of like different countries, but it's in terms of age, it's in terms of the experience. And and when we sum it up, we can basically say that we have 4 superpowers. Somebody is unmuted. Can you please mute yourself? Give me 1 second. All right. So so basically, Omdena is about four superpowers. So it's about the people, then the collaborative processes, the tools. Tools means we have many partnerships with tool providers that we are bringing in to build those solutions. And fourth, it's about the knowledge base. So in terms of the NGO world, we can say that we have one of the world's biggest NGO AI case study databases. So we have completed, I think with NGOs, more than 40 projects in several domains. And when it comes to the people that we have in our project, we can say that we have around 35 to 40% women represented, which I think in AI, the industry average is around maybe 5%. So we are very happy about that. And yeah, the community spreads all around the world. And we have been working with several organizations, such as startups, impact startups, incubators, and with international NGOs, and also with public sector and intergovernmental organizations. And yeah, the work that we have been doing has been highlighted in several places. And yeah, I think that this is a quick introduction into Omdena and what we are doing. And now I want to give it over to Ghyzlene, who will be talking about the case study and will go into more detail. And if you have any questions, then we can talk about that in the next 40 minutes. So thank you. So over to you, Ghyzlene.
Thank you, Michael. Then I will share my screen also. All right. So data mining and NLP in violence prevention. So basically, what is data mining? Data mining is a technology that has been existing for over 50 years, which concept is to gather as much data you can, which we have been doing quite well since 20 years, and look inside of all that data to retrieve information. So what you need to do some data mining basically is data, and to create a pipeline of cleaning, transforming, and interpreting this data to extract information from it. This will allow you to find patterns and to even make predictions, to get insights on your organization. One field of AI is called natural language processing. It aims at using the ability of a machine to process huge amount of data, to read, to comprehend the human language, which is really difficult as it is really different from one region to another. It can be in different support. It can be oral, it can be written, it can be typed on a computer, but it can be also written manually. So NLP is the ability of a program to understand human language as it is spoken and written. What you need to do NLP? Well, you need data again, and you need a really good amount of data if you want to do a really strong NLP with deep learning. Also, what can you do with NLP? For example, NLP is used in chatbots. You can create those virtual assistants that will answer your customer or your customers' questions. You can do some speech recognition. Basically, that's what Siri, Alexa, and Google do. You can do some translation, for example, Google Traduction. But you can do also sentiment analysis. And there are many other fields, but for example, sentiment analysis is used in marketing, or mainly marketing, for knowing like what was the when you have customers writing reviews on your product, you can use sentiment analysis to automatize the reading of those reviews and get what was the main sentiment that came out of those comments. And how did we use those to prevent violence? We used it for a project with the Red Dot Foundation, which contacted us during the COVID, as the Indian government had forced a lockdown on India because of the explosion of um, uh, COVID cases, and they were on the field. They were they are an association that aims at helping people that are victims of violence and harassment. And they were on the field, and they noticed that since the beginning of the lockdown, the amount of people contacting them had exploded. So they needed information, data to support this observation. They wanted to know if it was only like because of the crisis, or if it was really happening, if it was only on sentiment, or if it was really linked to the lockdown. So they contacted us to have data to support this observation. What we did with them was, first of all, understand the problem, to plan what, because we at Omdena we do projects for 1 month or 2 months, and we need to deliver something at the end of those 1 to 2 months. So we needed to know what we are capable of doing in those 2 months. So the first thing we were capable of doing, and we determined was our priority, was to get a data set, retrieve data from the internet. And we went from scraping media online to using Twitter API, to using government data and Google Trends to see if people had looked online for help through the Google search engine. Then we had all this data, but it was it was not structured. Each kind of data set had its own structure. So we had to process this data to retrieve information from this data. So we first ran a pre-processing engine on this data to get the main topics from each data sets. Then we did some sentiment analysis on this model, on this data, to see if we had the how do you say it? We had a lot of appearance of those harassment keywords. If we had an increase in helping hotlines searches, that kind of stuff. And then we used an naive Bayesian classifier to automatize this sentiment analysis, because at first we had to tag to read ourselves. We were a team of 50 engineers, and we had to scrap a lot of data manually, to label it manually, to see, okay, this topic, this Twitter, this news, this news is about violence, it is related to harassment, it is about an increasement. So we had to label it by hand. But then we wanted to create a process that would automatize this labeling. So we used a naive Bayesian classifier that would determine for each data set, based on the training, based on the data set that we would already have labeled, the machine would learn the link between what is considered violence, what is not considered violence, and then we would feed the machine another data set that would not be labeled, and we would ask the machine, okay, can you tell us now if this is violence or not? And the machine was responding yes, no, yes, no, yes, no. And we provided that to the Red Dot Foundation. And with that, we provided also a Tableau dashboard which was aiming at displaying visually with graphics what was happening. And we obviously gave all the project deliverables to Red Dot Foundation. So as I was saying, we delivered a lot of visualization to Red Dot Foundation. And one of the main important thing to know is that they were able to use that data to file a public interest litigation with the Supreme Court of India, and their case was referred to the Ministry of Home Affairs of Omdena results, and Omdena results formed part of the evidence base for their request to declare the domestic violence services as essential and issue guidelines. But that's not the only case where you can use AI, NLP, and data mining. At Omdena, we have covered a lot of topics, a lot of subjects that needed that kind of technologies. For example, identifying financial incentives, or creating a chatbot to create a warning system against online predators, and so on. So here I wanted to maybe ask you on the audience if you ever had a situation that would be somewhat similar to what I was talking about, and you are thinking, yeah, that's definitely a solution I could use. It's up to you guys. Okay. Maybe has anyone like, what do you work on a daily basis? What are the topics you are handling every day?
Maybe I can offer something.
Yeah.
So
Go ahead.
my organization, we work on various things, but two big areas of focus are monitoring online hate speech, and then also dealing with rumors and misinformation that are linked to conflict. And especially in the case of dealing with rumors and misinformation, we typically focus on a sort of a real world, so to speak, crowdsourcing approach so far, but we'd like to start looking at ways of monitoring that online as well, which is what brought me to this session. So I don't really have a specific question, but that's a potential use case since you were looking for that.
Definitely. And what kind of platform are you intending to scrap to look?
That's a really good question. I think it would depend on the context, you know, whatever is most relevant in a certain country, let's say, but we'd be thinking mostly about social media. I would think predominantly Facebook, although I realize there are difficulties with mining data from Facebook. In other cases, Twitter might be relevant, or even, you know, let's say even websites of media outlets and things like that.
Okay. So as you just pointed out, it's kind of difficult to get to mine data from Facebook, as you need an authorization, an explicit authorization from Facebook to retrieve the data from their website. It's easier with Twitter, and actually that's why we used Twitter, because we tried retrieving data during the Red Dot project. We tried to retrieve data from Facebook and Instagram, but then we faced this issue, and with Twitter, we faced also an issue, but it was we were able to find a workaround by using VPNs. With Facebook, you are kicked out immediately and you cannot retrieve data. So yeah, maybe Twitter is easier.
Yeah, that's certainly true, and that's why we've also, when it comes to our hate speech monitoring, focused on Twitter. It's just it comes down to a question of what's most relevant. So because most people in the countries where we work, by far more people use Facebook than Twitter. So it might just be a case of us not really having any options there, unfortunately, at least not in terms of automated monitoring.
Yeah, okay. Anyone else? Please go ahead, Rory.
Hi there. Thank you so much. It's a really great presentation. My name is Rory Scott. I'm from the UK's Foreign Commonwealth and Development Office, and I work in a unit called the Open Source Unit. We do quite a lot of similar stuff. It seems like there's a lot of people on this call that do stuff related to disinformation or use open source data. I think I have one question and then just a brief reflection on the preceding point. The question is, when you're doing news media scraping and things like that, what's your sort of go-to for getting that? Do you use large indexes? Do you build your own parsers, things like Scrapey in Python, or do you have other ways of generally getting that sort of really high volume of news media data? We have our own way, but I'm just really curious to triangulate with other people, other practitioners. And the reflection I have is just on that last point. We similarly have similar things with getting data from social networks. But when you're a government who abides by the law, like we do, that gets even more restrictive. And certainly it seems like Facebook is probably where a lot of the action is happening in terms of some of the most kind of foul play stuff. But I don't know anyone that has come up with a good solution to actually getting insight to it. So I think that's quite an interesting challenge. That I know there was a Facebook session at some point, which unfortunately I couldn't make, but I think that's, yeah, there's certainly some really interesting stuff that could come out of that. So anyway, thank you.
Okay, on the tools we used, so to scrap information, depending on the project, as we are 50 people trying to solve the problem, we have had a lot of solutions proposed. Some were building robots to scrap the web, but you find out quickly that they are shut down. A good solution we found was using Selenium. I don't know if you've heard of it. It's an open source tool that allows you to like scroll to look around the web and gather information. Basically, Selenium does, well, what it does, it literally reads web pages, and it can understand what is the head, what is the corpus, what is the body, what is the foot of the page, the foot page. And yeah, it generates a lot of data as it is scrolling the web, and you just give it like the URLs of the websites you want to scrap. And what did we I think that's the main tool we used, actually. Yeah, and we trade a lot of robots. And as to accessing the social medias, we tried to walk around the Facebook limitation unsuccessfully, as our bots, we actually found a lot of real documentation on GitHub. And if you guys are not all IT guys or into computer science, I can only recommend you GitHub. It's a repository where developers post their code, and a lot of them put it for free, so you can find great programs for free. And for example, we found one that would allow us to scrap Instagram, but yeah, it was shut down after maybe like 50 posts or something like that. So yeah, concerning social medias using their APIs. Yeah, also for Twitter, there was a good Twitter scraper. I think it was even called Twitter scraper that was working until an update of September 2020, I think, and it was really good, even easier than, it was based on the Twitter API, but it was even easier to use in Python. And since an update from Twitter, because to use Twitter, you need to have an account. To use the Twitter API, you need to have a Twitter account and to give your telephone number. And with the Twitter scraper, you didn't need any of those. You could only you could directly retrieve data from Twitter. And since the update of September 2020, they shut it down. So yeah, use the official APIs, guys. It will be more robust.
Right, I think Rory had a question.
Oh no, I asked my question. Thanks.
So in the chat, I'm seeing a question about languages. Actually, concerning the project with the Red Dot Foundation, it was for India. So we had to, most of the scrappers and especially the modeling algorithm you can find online are English based. So so yeah, we had to find libraries, and sometimes to abstract the language with mathematics, like to transform the phrases into vectors, into numbers, to be able to compare information and to create a data set of information that would be a little that would be homogeneous, and yeah, there are a lot of workarounds. Okay, I'm not seeing any other question. Anyone? Before we move to practice. Okay. So I will share with you the link to the workshop. Okay. Please let me know if you are able to open it.
I'm in. Thanks.
Great. Okay. So as we just said, it's a little bit difficult to retrieve information from Twitter, Facebook, as we did during the project. So I based this tutorial on a library, an open source library that is called NLTK. That is also actually an NLP library, but it contains data sets that you can use to train the models they contain. And the dataset I choose is Reuters. Reuters is an information newspaper. Okay. And this dataset contains more than 10,000 news documents, which is a great basis to work on. So here I think I will let you maybe like run the whole step 1 on your own, the step 1, get data. Maybe I give you 5 minutes to do that, to look around what is written, what code is in there, and then I'll comment. And if you have questions, I'm here to answer them. So yeah, basically, I don't know if you guys have ever used Google Colab. You can actually run those little scripts by clicking on this button. And then you will see here, I have already run it once, so that's why it's asking this. But you should have a message saying, okay, packages all ready, all up to date. And then you can run each little box, and there is a commentary accompanying it, explaining what you are seeing, what is displayed here. So yeah, please run through it and let me know if you have questions.
Could you maybe talk a little bit about the data set that we're using? Is it articles from Reuters News?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Those are actual newspaper articles. So yeah, because the purpose here of this workshop is to lead you through a document. Like, let's say we are scraping the web, and here we are scraping newspapers. And so we already have a data set that is coherent and clean and everything. So we will cut off that part, but it will still give us the ability of using NLP and data mining on that data set to see what information we can retrieve from it and how to prepare the data set to retrieve information from it. Okay, so quickly. So we are loading a lot of libraries and information to get our program to work. Then the first field will allow you to see what is contained in this dataset. You'll see it is containing a lot of documents. Each line represents a document. And those documents are categorized into a lot of words. You have those keywords that are labeling your dataset. And to see, for example, what documents are linked to some kind of dataset, you can run that kind of command. For example, if I want to know only the one linked to jobs, I can select only jobs. Maybe another one, you can get Bedroll, anything, and you run it and you see the information that is linked to it. This is interesting when you have a lot of information and you want to segregate this information and to cut it into topics like we did. Here is just a way to access, to read what is one of the document containing. As you can see, it is here an article about Asian exporters and tension between US and Japan. And then as we are doing text analysis, we want to know what kind of words are the most represented into our data sets, because as we are doing a literal analysis, we need to know the power of the words contained into our data sets. But as it is not really easy to read as it is, we are going to just retrieve the top 10 words, and we can see it is like not that relevant. Maybe the trade part is interesting as it is about trading, but then all of those not that much really interesting. And you can see even graphically into a plot the same information. Not so much, like you can have some words that are interesting like trade, Japan, that kind of, yeah, but not so much. So what we are going to do first is clean the document. To do that, we will first merge the information into a table to organize it with what document is the text linked to, and what are the categories linked to those texts. And then we can get to the data preparation. So we will first of all remove all punctuation, characters, weird characters, like all of those, to get clean text. Then there is a technique in a lot of in NLP, because a lot of models you will use are need to know are doing a word analysis, or a bigram meaning 2 words, or trigrams meaning 3 words analysis. You need to cut this text into words, which are called tokens. So a computer doesn't know this is a word, this is another word. For it is like literally a whole sentence, and even spaces are a part of the sentence. For it, this is one token. So you need to tell the machine to cut it down, to split it into tokens. So we will import the library to do that. Okay, it worked. And then use the library to split the parts of the text into tokens. So as you can see, this has been split into different words. Now they are separated. But then we still have the problem with a lot of words that are not that relevant to the analysis, like the, a, from. So we will get rid of those also. And let's see the same graph we saw earlier, but this time you only have information: US, trade, Japan, exports, imports. Now you have information. You're not polluted with the same stop words, we call them like that, as we were earlier, the off, commas, that kind of stuff. So now you can start doing interesting stuff. Oh yeah, one last step is lemmatization. Lemmatization is the concept of going from a word to its base. For example, if I want to lemmatize increases, it will show increase. You see we went from plural to singular. And it works the same with verbs. If we had the past or the future or anything, it will get to the root, which is be. Please note that this can be parameterized as, for example, there are words like playing. It is verb, but it is also a noun depending on how you are using it. So sometimes the wordnet limitizer is not working properly. Sometimes it will cut off some word, and actually it doesn't make no sense in the context. This is you can perfect it, and there are ways to do that. I will link in the main presentation some tutorial on how to do that. Okay, let's go on. And then we will do it on the whole text. And here is how you can prepare a text. So here you all the steps we did. From here you can do any analysis you want on the text. Basically, you can refine it, you can rework it to make it even more accurate, even more relevant. But starting from here, you are ready to make some text mining. As we want to do some topic modeling, we want to catch some words from all these data sets. We will use what we call name entity recognition. This will allow us, this little program will literally read the text and get information from it. Like it will know if like Japan is, this is encoded, but GPE means country or region, and it will like link the parts of a text to a category. And like that, you can know what is composing your text. And actually, you can even create your own categories. So you can, for example, that's what we did. We created the violent category, and we linked it to the part of the text, to some, like we created a list of violent words, of hatred words. And each time the word appeared in text, it would be tagged violence, domestic violence, online harassment. And now that we had those texts that would have been linked to categories of words, we could retrieve this information and create clusters of texts. And for example, for tweeters, point out that those tweets are hate-based tweets, or they are talking about domestic violence. And same for newspapers. And actually, you can do that to any subject. For example, for finance, if you're looking for some IBAN, you can tag the information and retrieve information from that. And yeah, it's really, really useful method. And finally, I wanted just to show you a little bit of data visualization. There are a lot of things you can do actually. There are so many data visualization you can use, and especially you can use already implemented solutions like Tableau that will help you put into graphics the information way more easily than recreating the whole program by yourself. And here what we wanted to do is show for the first text of our dataset what were the main keyword that were coming out. And as it was only one text, there are only few words that are repeating themselves. So you can see a lot of them coming up. And yeah, I think that's it. That leaves time for questions. Shoot. with data visualization, for example, a field that is really based on data visualization is business intelligence. Companies or organizations use business intelligence to show trends in their operational work, in their operations, to see where the money went, to see where the activity is happening, what will happen tomorrow, because you can make prediction and show it on graphs. And we actually did one for the project here. Okay, I don't know how to quit it. So yeah, you can see here that we have all the countries in a map with the ratio of domestic violence before the lockdown and after lockdown. And then you can see which countries were more impacted after the lockdown happened. Okay, that's it for me then.
Are there any other questions? Questions on this workbook, or any other questions regarding Omdena or projects that you are working on? We have another 10 minutes. It seems like there are now no more questions. If you're interested in some of the work and more detail, I share with you our blog, where we have written down many technical case studies, but also case studies which are not as technical. So depending on what you're more interested in, you find the information here, and I'm sharing the link now in the chat. And if you have any follow-up questions, you can also drop me an email at michael@omdena.com. And then, yeah, I'm happy to help out. So hope you enjoyed it. And that's it from our side. So thank you very much for joining in.